Good afternoon and welcome to the Talia Esports Series Finland for the start of Summer 2021 split. I'm Nyyrikki Cyril, I'm joined by Rael, and we're ready to get in for a banger. We're going to be seeing Nyyrikki, the current champions, and may I add, the undefeated champions of Spring playing in this opening game.
Yeah, what a team that Nyyrikki is. Like, we've seen them before, and they just look dominant from the get-go throughout. So definitely the team to beat. So coming into this, find out Nyyrikki your first opponent for Epic Avalanche is not the greatest feeling, but if you can do it, that makes you one of the favorites to look into.
And it's one of those things because Epic Avalanche will come into this and I like to put it on a sense of there's no real pressure for them. Of course, there is pressure, the players will want to win. But if they lose, no one's going to come out and say, "Oh, Epic Avalanche, what a terrible team. They lost to Nyyrikki." And I know I'm putting maybe a bad precedent for them, but at the same time, they can come into this fairly chilled, fairly relaxed. Whereas for Nyyrikki, if they make any kind of mistakes, instantly the question is going to be put on: Are they as good as what they were in spring?
Yeah, and I think that pressure is definitely going to be on their shoulders because, like you said, undefeated team didn't drop a single game, and if they drop a game on their first game back, they're going people are going to be like, okay, they have weaknesses. We know how to beat them now. We watched Epic Avalanche beat them. Like, let's expose this.
And when we talk about these weaknesses, or maybe even so the strengths of Nyyrikki, where are you particularly looking? Where do you think, okay, this is where we're going to see the action. These are the players that we can really expect from Nyyrikki to be stepping up again in summer.
I mean, you're going to see constant aggression from their jungler. The jungler is a very big carry player, and it's not really going to be much surprise to see him try to be in the face of the other jungler as much as possible. It's hard to pinpoint any weaknesses with this team because even their transition to mid game macro goes well. So usually you'll see some teams early game, they do it perfect. And then the transition from early game usually falls to pieces for some teams. But Nyyrikki sort of have mastered that. I think the only time you can really punish them is when it gets to the later games, the later death timers, just finding someone in that side lane.
Well, if they can find someone in the side lane, if they can look to be playing that split push strategy, and when we do talk about the likes of split push, you're always looking towards your top lane and looking towards Epic Avalanche, Carvos. He plays the likes of the Nai, plays some Wukong as well. These are champions that can work really well into the side lane, but against Petoska, someone who likes to play champions like the Fiora, even Tryndamere, if we saw something like a Tryndamere making its way through.
Well, interesting enough, he also plays Kale, that is Carlos, and Kale isn't too bad into Fiora. It can be annoying for sure, especially with the parry, but eventually you're just gonna outrange. And with the latest Kale buffs, Kale is definitely stronger than what she was before. A lot more to be reckoned with. Not no more of like, okay, I'm just gonna give over free CS because I picked Kale. I can't fight in the lane. She's actually a bit more prevalent, but Fiora's a scary one for sure.
And I want to look towards the bottom lane, and it's particularly so for Epic Avalanche, because to me, VL and Turbo Gandalf, they kind of stand out as maybe the players to watch out for Epic Avalanche. And we see from VL, he likes to play the likes of the Xayah, the Senna, the Kai'Sa. These are all champions that can pop off. They're not exactly hyper scaling ADCs, but they can be such huge carries for the team.
Well, interesting enough, I like that you bring this up because VL plays Varus, and right now Varus is S tier. Varus is right up there.
Yeah.
And you look at the other side, Azitor, is that how you say it?
Azita?
Azitor doesn't play Varus
No.
by the looks of things. Maybe he does in scrims because everyone should be playing this champion right now as an AD carry because he's just that strong. He barely has any weak matchups. He has such a dominant lane pressure. You have the flexibility to go on hit with Kraken Slayer or just go lethality. So it's gonna be interesting to see the pressure they put on AD carry bans or even picks.
And you mentioned the different types of builds that you can be getting with the Varus. I was looking at VL solo queue history and looking at all of the Varus games he's been playing, and about 80% of them are going that on hit, building the Prowler's Claw first. But every now and then you do see the Phantom Dancer coming through, Runans as well. So VL happy to play with both styles of the champion, but is kind of tending more towards the lethality build.
Yeah, not really a surprise. The lethality with Hail Blaze, despite Hail Blaze being nerfed, is still just such a very good option. The main thing I'm a bit curious about, we have a little bit of an unknown entity in the likes of I I'm gonna butcher this. Abag Abagnail? The support for
Abagnale,
Nair
I think,
Ab
is what I always called it, but it might be Abagnale.
I have no idea. We'll probably get corrected on that. The Turkish support for Nyyrikki. So we
Yes.
actually couldn't find the OPGG for this guy, so we don't know what to expect, but considering this is Nyyrikki, this is an aggressive team, I probably highly expect him to be on these aggressive supports, these Leonas, these Nautilus, this Fresh, champions like this to just be constantly in the face of the enemy team. So, whereas on the other side, we know what they play on support.
Yes.
Definitely a big difference. Definitely a big difference. We see the Senna actually being played support. Seraphine, still lurking around. She did receive some buffs. Actually, is quite prevalent in the mid lane too. So that's that flex pick on the board. The Lulu, disgustingly broken right now. I don't know why Riot wanted to buff Lulu, but here we are.
And when you do look over, I mean, as you mentioned, Turbo Gandalf, he likes to play these enchanted supports. From what I remember, because if I recall, when there was, I think, when we did actually here on the SQ1 broadcast host the Telia Masters, I think it was a qualification event, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Um, we did see Nyyrikki playing in the competition, and I do remember a couple of games from Abagnale, and I think, as you mentioned, Rael, he was playing on those kind of engaged supports. But for Nyyrikki, where can we really expect to see the aggression? Where do they want to play around? And is it going to be something that they change from team to team, or is it a thing where, Nyyrikki, it's, we've got Petoskey at top, so we're going to always be playing around Petoskey. We've got Azita in the bottom lane. We're always going to be playing around Azita.
Well, the thing is, you also have Wizen, who's a carry mid laner. He likes to play stuff like Aurelia, happy rail noises. Um, plays Zed, plays Yone, plays Silas. All these aggressive picks right now. Even Corki can go into that pool with them picks because he is in such a good spot right now.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a lot of action around mid lane if we get any of these aggressive picks come through. Especially like Silas, quite high priority right now, gets really low cooldown off Everfrost CDR boots, and just becomes absolutely disgusting after he gets them two items.
And there is one thing that I particularly like when we talk about aggression around mid lane. And while maybe top laners don't like that because it means they're on an island, while some mid laners might not like that because they want to play the Kassadin and want to just be farming for 15 minutes, it tends to mean that we do get to see supports I like to roam around, and you highlighted it a little bit earlier when we talk about stuff like the Leona, the Nautilus. I'd love to see a Pike, but we're probably not going to be getting it. But if we can see those kind of roaming supports where we see one of the bottom lanes just shove in a wave, and then the support says, "All right, ADC, I'm off. I'm, migrating over to the mid lane, gonna get some gold, and then I'm coming back."
Oh, to be honest, I'm happy not seeing a Pike anymore. I'm done with that champion. He's old now. We're
It's
over
all
Pike. We're so over him. We're back to just these constant aggression supports. But the main thing about what you just mentioned, I want to see if they're going to have this synergy roaming around with their junglers. I want to see if they're going to create that 2v2 potential or even 3v1 and just keep moving together, placing deep wards, maybe three man gank in mid, maybe three man gank in the enemy jungle, stuff like this. These are the small things I want to see.
And when I do look towards Sedalix and towards the champions that he plays, you are looking at stuff like the Graves, the Rumble, the Kazakhs. These are all champions that can invade into that jungle, especially something like the Graves. How many times have we seen Graves three buffing their opposing jungler? So if we can see this aggression coming through, do you think that's going to be assisted more by having a mid laner that's able to push in waves and then roam, something iconic like Syndra in that sense, or is it more dependent on the bottom lane?
So interesting enough, with the way the meta is currently shaped, one of the most favorable mid lane picks right now is essentially a top laner, but gets played in mid. It's set. And the reason being is you can take whatever punishment and you will always get the push on mid lane. There's rarely any champion what is going to stop you pushing mid lane. And because of that, it opens up the jungle to play Rumble. And Rumble and Set synergize so well together because Set creating that AoE slow when he ultimates on top of Rumble Equalizer just creates so much team fight threat. That's a big 2v2 a lot of teams have been playing right now.
It's quite literally the perfect setup for the Rumble. But I do like Rumble. We are seeing more Rumble coming through. We've also been seeing a few changes not too long ago when you look towards stuff like the Morgana, the Diana, starting to become a little bit more prevalent in the jungle as well now.
Yeah, despite the Morgana nerf, she's still there. She's still very much there. She's not gone anywhere just yet. She's just not as broken as she used to be. She used to have the fastest clear in the game without pretty much taking any damage. Now it's slowed down a bit, so you can actually deal with it a bit better. And also another flex bit to be talking about is this Lee Sin. We've seen so much of it
Oh
popping
god,
up.
I forgot
We
about Lee Sin.
we have the triple flex Lee Sin. Um, I don't know if any team plays it, but right now he is kind of just that good. So if you like the champion, like aggressive champions, he generally fits into any team comp you want him in.
I've seen too many clips of Lee Sin at MSI. I think I'm trying to remember if it was Armor or someone else who just flashed auto E auto and took about 30% health from the opposing top lane. It was disgusting.
Yeah, it
I'm
was
still
armor.
getting nightmares of it. Yeah, it was Armor. Okay. See, I was sad. I didn't get to see Armor on Gnar. We might be seeing some Gnar today. We talked about how Carvos likes to play his Gnar, and maybe it'll be making its way through if Epic Avalanche do want to play that weak side at top lane.
Nara's a brave one into the likes of Patoska, just because
True.
looking at the champions Patoska plays, if you play Nar, you're kind of just sacrificing your lane and saying, "Come on, dive me," which they will. They
They
definitely
will,
will
yeah.
dive you. You are not safe.
Could
And
never.
look at the likes of Patoska. He plays Tryndamere, he plays Fiora, he plays Riven. Riven actually is one of the strongest top laners on current patch. In a 5 scenario, it's a little bit different, but she's still really, really strong. So, I mean, if they pick something like a Gnar, they're just going to be opened up to unleash whatever they want.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about the importance of jungle, what might come through in the mid lane, whether we do see that set making its way in. Let's talk a little bit about, bottom lane. I guess the meta where that currently is, because we've already talked about the Leona, the Nautilus, the Thresh, and these engaged supports tend to be where it's at. But you also highlighted how strong champions like the Lulu currently are.
Yeah, Lulu's just a scary one because as soon as you see Lulu, you're like, do they play COG? Have they been playing COG in scrims? Are they going to
Same.
pick Lulu COG? We don't want to play against this. Like, no team wants to play against it. It's not fun to play against. You can deal with it. It's just the pressure of a Lulu COG being in the game is a ticking time bomb. Um, so you might even just see Lulu banned quite early. And also, we have both Gwen and Viego enabled.
Oh yeah.
So there's definitely them to even think about too, because Viego tends to slip through a lot of the time and is a very, very aggressive mid laner.
And with that, I think we are almost ready to jump into picks and bans. We're getting a little sneak peek as to what might be coming up. But Gwen and Viego, they're both enabled. Well, Viego is a terror both on the game and in terms of bugs, or at least he was, but hopefully most of them have been fixed, and we'll be seeing whether Viego will be able to break any hearts today.
To be honest, the more scary one's just Gwen. She's a lot harder to CC. She's a lot more slippery. That's why a lot of teams will let the Viego through. It's just whether they've drafted enough CC to deal with him.
And of course, if Viego gets those resets mid-fight where he's able to assume another champion's form, get a little bit of health back, it can become so devastating in the middle of a game. The first ban, though, that Lee Sin that you were talking about before.
And he's straight off the table. We don't want to deal with a Lee Sin. We don't want to deal with a Viego. Getting rid of these very aggressive champions. Lee Sin, I mean, if you're not willing to blind pick it, then you kind of have to ban it. Another one that falls into that pool is the Tristana, so we might even see that being taken away.
And the Viego banned as well. We'll see whether the Gwen ban it does follow. Gwen, such an annoying champion, as you mentioned, just becoming untargetable within her mist, I guess. Nidalee Nocturne, 2 more bans coming through, and there's a Gwen.
Not really surprised to see the Gwen. Red side ban, third ban usually is a Tristana, unless they have something planned for this, because it's just that flexibility of being in the mid or the bot lane. Really, really aggressive champion, sometimes really hard to deal with if you don't have a set plan for it.
And we know that Abignale likes it, or pardon me, we know that Azita likes to play the Tristana from time to time. We'll see whether it does come through. It's actually going to be the Rumble Band targeted against Set Hits.
I still like the Rumble Band here. They've got rid of a lot of team fight potential, definitely, because they got rid of the Nocturne 2, which has been played so much in top and mid right now, more so than jungle. And we talked about it. We talked about it a lot. The Varus,
Yes.
the priority. As soon as he's open, you take him. He is that strong.
You know, we've got the Varus. Oh wait, hey, we've got the Varus and we've got the X Varus. So you know, 2 Varuses right now. But okay, in seriousness, what can we expect to be seeing from the side of Epic Avalanche to answer into this Varus? Because at the moment, the Ezreal's been hopping.
Ezreal's been locked in. Obviously, Ezreal just came off some buffs and more indirect buffs because his main component more or less got buffed. And not only that, it buffed a lot of champions what also ran the same item. So Ezreal in a decent spot, but if Nyyrikki pick something really aggressive bot lane like the Nautilus, like the Fresh, like the Leona, it's going to be very hard for Ezreal to lane, and that's where I want to see how Epic Avalanche are going to adapt with their support pick.
At the moment, they're keeping that support pick hidden. Instead, they've gone for the Jays, which is most likely going to be into the top lane. But we have seen it from time to time, even being flexed down towards the mid lane.
Yeah, it's been very, very flexible. So again, it's not really showing too much just right now. It's just whether you want to be playing Jace into the mid lane of Wazen. We don't know where the Akali's going still. Still another flex. More likely the mid lane, but not going to bank on it yet.
And Raisin, that Akali has been locked in. Whether it'll be going towards Petoska in the top lane or towards the mid lane, we'll have to see. We know both Petoska and Raisin like to play these really aggressive champions, so you can, you know, fully see that Akali getting put into either role.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's such a dangerous flex. Both of them so aggressive. And, right, don't count this Karma being support right now.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, Karma gets played mid and top quite often.
Yes.
And it's the Shirelius Karma with Staff of Flame Water. It's just, I want to buff my team Karma, and you can't stop me. And it just becomes that much of a nuisance.
And we know it fits into Turbo Gandalf's pool really well. He likes to play these Enchanter style supports, and Karma fits that perfectly. But at the same time, could be getting put mid, could be getting put top. I doubt we're going to be seeing it in the ADC or jungle role. Jungle Karma, thankfully, not yet a thing.
Yeah, not yet. You know Riot, they love spicing things up and be like, we haven't seen Karma jungle being played. Shall we make it a thing? But in all seriousness, Karma does actually fit quite well into the bot lane to deal with the push pressure of the Varus. And that's why it's still just a very nice flex here. Can be pretty good into Assassins as well. Using that Mantra W, I can't even remember what you call it. I think it's the Flare. Regardless, it gives you HP back. So you're going to be able to deal with these Assassins that much easier. And it also reveals. So if you have that channeled on before Akali goes into Shroud, you still see Akali.
And Ezreal Karma, you know, it's one of those lanes that Ezreal loves to be part of. You talked as well about how Thresh and Nautilus could be such a chink in the armor for the Epic Avalanche at bottom lane, and they have been banned away. Kindred and Olaf targeted against Epic Avalanche by the side of Nyyrikki.
Now this is a very, very spicy hover, and it also brings curiosity to why the Kindred was banned, and Olaf. To be honest, haven't seen an Olaf in a very, very long time. Kindred has popped up a little bit in popularity, but nonetheless, Volibear Flex still doesn't reveal anything. You still don't know where this is going.
And that's what you like to see from a red side draft, making sure that things do lurk in the shadow, that there is that flexibility going into their final pickup. And now for Nyyrikki, they have to kind of draft, you know, what do they draft against in the top lane? Is it against the Jace? Is it against the Volibear? But for now, the Leona is going to be hovered. Thresh and Nautilus taken away, but Leona still brings so much engaged potential to Nyyrikki.
You see, I like Leona the most here, so I wouldn't even banned it away. Just for the fact that there's so many slippery targets, right? So Fresh is going to be just evidently harder to play here. You're still going to provide the obviously Fresh mobility of having the Lantern and everything, but the Leona is more or less going to force someone to use one of their gap escapes, like Ezreal E. He's going to need to use that early, or Leona's just going to flash, because you're going to solar flare first, regardless.
And, well, let's see if the Leona can lock down the members of Epic Avalanche. The set has been locked, and we talked about the flexibility of the set. So for Nyyrikki, they can do whatever they want. They can put Akali top, they can put set top in the other one.
Yeah, exactly that. But the only scary thing is, the set into Volibear is a really coin flip matchup. Whoever takes the first kill in that matchup really does snowball out of control, and we talked about KO, and we've got it locked in.
The Kayle is locked in. It's not into a Fiora, which is one of the matchups we were talking about. It does look like it will be the Kayle into the set matchup, and Jace versus Akali in the mid lane. So let's talk about these two matchups, because this is where we were unsure where Epic Avalanche were going to be putting their Jace.
So the interesting thing is, the KO's actually pretty good into the set.
Okay.
And mainly because Set needs Stride Breaker to stay on top of KO. KO's movement speed when she uses her W is absurd. She moves so fast, and it'd be hard to stay on top of her. The only thing she has to be careful of is Set's level 6 power spike, which, if she's 6 as well, she just buffers her all, which is quite easy to do. After that, you can keep him at range. Until he gets Stride Breaker, he's not a threat to you. And you can just keep him at range, claim your CS, get to level 6 practically for free, unless Ude comes up with a Flash Blast slap.
Now, I want to talk about one thing, because to me, there feels to be a slight issue for the Epic Avalanche composition. And don't get me wrong, I like the ideas of having Ezreal Karma, especially when that Karma is in the support role, which is where I firmly believe it belongs. You've got the Jace as well. There's a lot of poke here, but I'm not identifying any CC for the side of Epic Avalanche, whereas when you look over to Nyyrikki, every single member of Nyyrikki, with the exception of the Akali, has some CC and some hard CC as well.
Yeah, and this is the issue for me. Nyyrikki just have the easier comp to pull off. There's very little you can go wrong on with this. You have a standard top laner what can take a beat and then just heal back up with his passive. You have Ude who's going to perma-farm and pretty much just out-farm Volibear, mostly. He's going to be able to live in his jungle free of rent as well, so exactly what he wants. It's mainly just going to be if Akali can keep the push on Jace. Jace should get the push early. So after that early part, it's going to be a little back and forward, where the bot lane's going to create nearly all the pressure he needs. Because Leona Varus, if they get onto someone, they're more than likely dead, and you can see the respect already coming through with the Ezreal taking the cleanse.
That cleanse important against the Leona, especially when there's other forms of CC available. You talk about the Bear Slap, even the Face Breaker from the set. But I want to talk about the Varus, because we talked about how we might be seeing either the Lethality Varus or the Crit Varus in this composition for Nyyrikki against its composition from Epic Avalanche. Which option do you think Azaki should go for?
I mean, for me, it literally doesn't matter which one you go for in this game, just because I know it's a bit nitpicky to say it, but you can literally run either into this team. There's 4 squishy targets, essentially, which could just say, okay, I can go Lethality and just one-shot these 4. But if the Volibear gets ahead, then the Kraken Slayer is just going to be the more optimal. So you can literally wait and see what you want to build. Or it also depends on how dominant you are on lane. If you just get that much more ahead of the Ezreal, you could just opt towards going the attack speed and just pressuring more down on bot lane.
Now, the final thing I do want to bring up is when we do talk about the junglers, we're looking at Udyr against Volibear. But I don't want to talk about the matchup as such. I want to be talking more about where the junglers can be looking, what are going to be their focuses for their team, where are they directing their attention?
I would still say Nyyrikki should show a lot of attention towards mid-bot, just for the fact that Varus Leona are naturally going to get a push. And you want them to keep that pressure as long as possible. And to do so, you need to give them some pressure as well, so they're not under any threat, not under any gank potential. There obviously is 2 TPs in this game. Got to worry about the Jace and the Kayle. So I want to see Nyyrikki putting pressure towards that bot side of the map. Set is very self-sufficient. So if you don't gank him, it's fine. But if you do, he will snowball for sure. Where we look at Epic Avalanche, it's going to be mainly mid-focus for me, because going bot lane early against that lane is so dangerous that they could probably 2v3 if they play it correctly. And that's something you don't want. You don't want to hear your Volibear go bot lane and hear first blood for the enemy team, and you're going to be like, hold on a minute. I thought
Followed
we was
by
ganking.
first blood, followed by triple kill. That's when you know things are going badly if you are Epic Avalanche. And again, we talked about the lack of CC available for Epic Avalanche. In a straight up 5v5, Nyyrikki, can take the engage. They should be able to disengage as well. They've got, the Leona Solar Flare to be able to zone members away. Petoska as well with the suplex. But for Epic Avalanche, how do they want to fight? Is it a case of just poking Nyyrikki down until they feel comfortable enough to fight, or does it all revolve around the Kale ultimate and the Volibear crashing in with the Stormbreaker?
It's mostly just going to be poke. You have Ezreal, who's going to go the newly buffed Divine Sunderer. Generally makes him a lot stronger, going to heal a lot more up, and obviously helps him deal with tanks. This is the main issue, that Udyr could just prioritize armor for a long time in this game because Kale is going to take a while to come online. That is the main downfall of Epic Avalanche's comp. And Udyr loves building armor. He's no stranger to that. He'll be happy just stacking all of that armor up against his team. Whereas, like you said, they're just going to want to poke away until Volibear can find the opening with the Kale on top. But at the same point, if you use Kale too early, Akali just finds backline access.
And you mentioned how the Udyr can just stack armor, but even when Kale does get strong, that damage is still coming from auto attack. Stuff like the Bramble Vest still super effective, as well as the plated steel cap.
Yeah, for sure. And there's something I wanted to talk about a bit more as well from Nyyrikki. It's the fact that having Set and Akali in the same comp is so disgusting on so many levels. And the reason being, it's just how much backline threat they create that it just draws attention away from Varus, draws attention away from Udyr. And they're just going to be putting out free damage while people are going to be like, oh my god, we need to kill Set, oh my god, we need to kill Akali before they kill Ezreal, before they kill Jace, before they kill Kale. Like, this combo together, they synergize so well in just creating such a distraction.
And with that, we jump on into game, and not just any game, the opening game of Telia Esports Series Finland Summer 2020. Reigning champions Nyyrikki taking on Epic Avalanche. Epic Avalanche finishing spring in fourth. They finished regular season in third, but they lost their first playoff game. And Epic Avalanche want to head on in with a bang. The 5-man stack on the bottom side, but they will get spotted out by Azita.
They will indeed get spotted out. Having no shenanigans today, no level 1 stuff around here. No team wants this, and interesting enough, Akali went fleet footwork. I like listening to the Jace. Jace is going to want to poke you down with autos as much as possible early game, even taking the Doran shield just to survive this laning phase.
And Epic Avalanche, they weren't done with being spotted on the bottom side and then being spotted on the top part of the bottom river. They still want to step in. They'll drop down the red trinket at Raptors before backing off. And while all of that happened, Nyyrikki were able to get a ward on the Raptors, or I should say on Epic Avalanche's Raptors.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the level 1 of Epic Avalanche is something you don't want to deal with Jace practically having 2 abilities, Karma having ultimate level 1, Ezreal just going to keep buffering them Qs. It is quite a dangerous one despite them having a Kale.
Now, something else we did talk about, in the pre-show was the split push, right? And obviously that was before we saw any champions being locked in. But now that we have seen what has been locked in, we're seeing 4 teleports coming through, 2 on either side in the solo lanes. Is it going to be a split push? Are we going to be seeing 1-4s from either side, or is this just going to be the full-on 5v5 team fights?
Oh, Kale wants to split push as much as possible. If she gets the chance to be sat in the side lane alone collecting solo XP, it's Kale's dream. So it's ideally what they're going to want to do, but it'll be the Akali matching in the split push if that is the case.
Facebreaker comes through on the top side, and it will just be a favorable trade to Petoska. As you mentioned, that Kale really is able just to kind of create a bit of a gap between them, and before the Stride Breaker comes through from Set, not much he can really do to stay on top of the Kale for extended periods of time.
Yeah, he's going to get some chip damage, and that's pretty much all he's going to get. Whereas Kale's going to sustain back up. But interesting enough, looking towards that bot side, we have Lethality Varus. He started Longsword and it went Hail of Blade, so that pretty much just signals lethality. there is still the option to still go attack speed with this build. That's why people like the Halo Blade so much. But I'm pretty much banking on lethality here, which isn't a surprise with 4 squishies.
Well, now that I think about it, I remember back when we used to cast on some games together, and we used to cast on a particular ADC, Desrim, who used to go with, I think it was Hail of Blades Varus, but he'd always go for the runes for lethality Varus, but then just proceed to build into crit Varus anyway.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember he used to actually go Comet and then just go into
Oh, Comet, yes.
on hit. It honestly just depends what suits your team at the time being. Like, you could be like, okay, we're definitely going to go poke, and then poke is just not an option in your game anymore, and you have to be getting more auto attacks down in a team fight, and that could be the case.
No, we wondered how much aggression we would see towards the mid lane. We expected to be seeing the aggression towards the mid lane from the side of Epic Avalanche, but ZAX is just showing up in the mid lane, helping to push the way forward so that Wazen can get a free recall off.
Talking of free recall, actually, Mirza got a cheetah recall off and got his early tier. Pretty much ideal for him because he didn't use his TP, whereas Wazen had to use his TP to get back here with his Dark Seal.
Yeah, now Wazen doesn't have a teleport available, and that can become so important if we do see any, 4v4s on a part of the map, because Mirza is going to be able to get there so much quicker with that teleport available to him.
Exactly so, and you can see mid lane's bouncing back and forth. No one's really getting the constant push. There is that respect being shown to that Jace, but look at bot lane.
Yeah, level 3 is up, and all of a sudden Leona can go in. The Ignite is ticking down. Veal and Azita just trading off autos, but the autos are stacking up in favor of Azita, and Veal will have to retreat even if his Conqueror is coming up. As Carvos does not get the best of it. Trades on the top side of the map, as we mentioned before. He's playing Kale and can start to sustain it all back up.
And Milky Cereal, that must have made you a happy boy, and it's probably gonna make you even happier.
It will, as long as the Leona doesn't die first. The arrows come in, a first blood in for ZAX, and it might be a 2. No, VL picks up the kill, but the Ignite eventually ticking down. It becomes a double kill in the bottom lane, but VL gets a 1 back, a 2 for 2 overall.
2 for 2 overall, indeed. Not the best turnout, what you'd want. You'd probably want your Varus living there, but the counter gank there with the Jace TP, the TP coming in clutch from that mid lane, is definitely a big answer back. Quite even start across the board from both teams here.
So how do we rate this then? Because it is a 2v2. In terms of kills, it's come
on.
out even. We do have to hold him because Jonas has been caught.
Oh no!
Shuriken Flip didn't find his mark. Wazen desperately trying to get closer, flashes forward, picks up the kill, and now looks to trade into Mirza. Might be able to get 2 for the price of 1, but no, we'll just chip away at Mirza's health bar. Make that 3rd kill for Nyyrikki.
That could have been very embarrassing. Wazen missing the Shuriken. Oh, hold on, it ain't over!
Wazen, he's been locked down, and the Jace jumps in on top. Mirza picks up the kill. Meanwhile, Nyyrikki pick up the Drake.
Yeah, Wazen lost his flash, lost his ultimate, just made him an easy gank opportunity, and he got taken down. And talking of taken down, Set on the top side took down Kale.
All the kills are coming in at the moment, everywhere. Here we get a replay. It's just a suplex and a straight-up kill for Podolska.
Yeah, stun into the showstopper. You ain't getting away, Chief. I'm taking you down. Early boots picked up by Kale. Standard start for her, but the Set has already answered back with his boots. And you mentioned this earlier. Heal caps are perfectly good into Kale. She still auto-attacks so much, so it's going to reduce a lot of damage.
And if a Bramble Vest comes through even later, Kale's going to be having even less of an impact in these fights, especially once she starts picking up some, or when she starts becoming a little bit more broken in terms of her self-heal. But we are 4 kills to 3 at the moment. Nyyrikki, 1k gold up, but it's not a huge lead 7 minutes into this game.
No, it's not completely out of hand. And especially when you have the likes of a Kale, you want to bank on a little bit more scaling. You want to wait a bit more towards that mid game for that Ezreal, that Jace to spike a little bit more harder. So it's not the worst for Epic Avalanche, considering they want more time.
Now, usually when we do see that first Drake coming through, it sometimes gives an opportunity for the opposite side. to maybe take an early Rift Herald, but with how early Nyyrikki were able to secure first Drake, Rift Herald is not up as Avalanche going on in onto the Karma. Shift away from VL. And oh no, it's a 3-man diver coming through onto VL. The autos are coming through onto the tower. Abagnale has fallen. Asset going to fall as well. It's 2 kills going over to VL. ZX under the wrong tower. Mercer stepping forward. Is he going to be able to find the autos? And ZX on the Udyr will just be able to run out to safety.
Well, that was not what they planned. Didn't come out the way they wanted it. And it's still not too bad for Ezreal there, considering the turnout.
VL, after being tower dived twice, is now 3-2. Both times Nyyrikki have gone for a tower dive on the outer tower in the bottom lane. It has not ended as they would have hoped.
Not ending how they hoped. Looking to pressure down that mid lane now. Karma arriving to provide support, but there's some other support in the wings.
And that other support is coming in the form of Abagnale. Does he want to go in? He doesn't have vision. He could try to guess with the Zenith Blade, but decides against it as Nyyrikki instead look towards the Rift Herald.
And they didn't fully spot Volibear, but they spotted the red buff losing HP, so they should have some idea that he is there. And they are spam pinging the Rift Herald. They know it's being taken away. Really nice pickup for Nyyrikki.
And now, the goal difference is about 300 as True Shot Barrage comes through, attempting to steal away a Rift Herald, but is unsuccessful in doing so. We're equal in terms of kills, the gold pretty much even. Who do you really think has come out of this early game better?
It's hard to say. I feel like Nyyrikki have tried too much on the bot lane. That actually Epic Avalanche benefited a fair bit from this. Talking of benefiting, Volibear sneaking into that top lane. Kale trying to bait this, making it a little bit too obvious though, but still going for it.
Next there comes through. ZX is here as well. It's going to become a 2v2. And the ultimate keeps Carbox alive. He flashes out, but it will get taken down. 1-for-1 on the top side of the map so far. And now the two junglers are beating down into each other. Bear versus Bear. It's really the rumble in the jungle, but there is no rumble available. The Phoenix stuns get some damage. Yona is stepping forward, gets the CC. Now Wason is here, and Volibear is forced to run for his tower. He flashes out to get to safety. And it will just end as a 1-for-1 on the top side.
They had the right idea, but it just didn't turn out with the execution. They didn't expect the set damage coming through, which you could never underestimate. Set does so much damage, especially when you get him low. You've seen that bar building up underneath his HP, and Kale was just hitting and hitting away. It was just made so obvious. And look at this, the set perfect haymaker, buying more time, and the trade just happens. And Volibear just doesn't have the mana to be doing this, so Udyr just runs him down till he has to flash away.
Yeah, Udyr has the blue buff available. Volibear had the red buff, so mana versus burn effect, I guess. And in the end, Volibear had to flash after noticing that there was a certain Akali making their way up to turn it into a 2v1.
Yep, and looking at items across the board, Udyr has finished his full item already. He has the Frostfire Gauntlet, so whoever he gets on is not getting away.
And actually, if we could just take a moment to look at where the gold is distributed as Carvox just takes a unfavorable trade, there is a huge amount on ZX as, never mind, I'm going to hold that thought. Solar Flare comes through, Turbo Gandalf flashing, but he's just locked down and taken down. And now VL targeted on the tower, but this time he will fall, and this time VL won't get a return kill.
And you wonder why some people don't like playing bot lane. And you wonder why people don't want to be on that side of the map. When you ask a mid laner, top laner, jungler, like, oh, would you ever play bot lane? They'll tell you hell no, and this is the reason why. Soon as you pick anything exploitable, as soon as you pick anything like an Ezreal, it's a bit like the GP treatment. As soon as they see that locked in, they will permanently dive you.
You say that, but I honestly think if you ask any League of Legends player, would you play League of Legends, they'll probably just say, hell no. But 8 kills to 6, 3k in it, and Nyyrikki have all of a sudden snowballed a rather substantial advantage 12 minutes into the match.
And that's what we talked about with the transition. So, sure, the early game was a little bit over-aggression, but they're starting to clean it up, going towards this mid-game, just starting to make a bit more favorable decisions, I should say.
And one of the things that I did want to highlight when we were looking towards the goal is I wanted to go on something like, oh, Nyyrikki, they've got so much gold on set X, but he's not exactly the carry. Doesn't really matter, but to be honest, that has all been answered now with it doesn't really matter because Nyyrikki are strong anyway.
Nyyrikki is strong anyway. Prowler's Claw completed on Varus. Proto Belt completed on Akali. Shouldn't be long till we get Stride Breaker on the set as well. Very, very big items coming through, whereas the only answers are Jace's Eclipse and Volibear's Frostfire Gauntlet. So bit item disparity here right now.
Yeah, and these are big kind of upgrades in damage for the side of Nyyrikki, and it means that they, pardon me, and it means that the side of Epic Avalanche are just gonna have to be respectful for a couple of minutes before they get their items through.
Yeah, and we talked about the mid game, what they wanted to spike on. They're just being delayed that chance to even spike. And it's exactly what Nyyrikki wants to do. Just deny that mid game power spike, put them further behind on gold, and just slow down their game and push more aggression.
We've seen the lane rotation coming through as Azita and Abagnale have made their way through onto the top side of the map, just giving more and more tower plates into Azita. As Petoska misses another face breaker into Carbox, but he doesn't really mind. He's just drawing Carbox's attention. Both top laners in the bottom side of the map, and they have their teleports available as well.
So there's one more level till Kayle starts to actually be more commanding, actually. Because that level 11 power spike is pretty big for Kayle, especially into this matchup of the set. But they're both about to spike on items. That's the scary part. Set will have a Stride Breaker be able to stick on Kayle like glue, whereas Kayle is going to hit her power spike with the Nash's Tooth very soon.
That Nash's Tooth will be making its way through. Both top laners yet to complete their first item. Nyyrikki currently leading by 3,500 gold in this opening game of the Telia Esports Series Finland Summer 2021, being broadcasted to you by the SQ1 League. And right now, it's just a bit of a low time, a bit of a downtime, where we can just start to really break down the game, start to bring out some narratives as well.
Yeah, both teams slowing down the aggression, but I say that and then they go straight into Wazen.
I will take full blame for that, Jinx.
Yeah, talking of a Jinx, looking to dive that set there. We've seen this happen before, but can they pull it off a bit better this time around? It's only set on his own, but there's no TP to actually answer.
There is no TP, both ultimates available. The suplex that comes through, Stormbring is going to disable the tower, and the set has no assistance. Facebreaker flashes away, Petoska will survive. Carbox is going to be eating the tower shots, and Petoska does not have a haymaker. Flash away from Jonas, but Wazen picks up the kill, and there is no ultimate for the KL. Double kill for Wazen, 2 for 1 on the bottom side of the map in favor of Nyyrikki.
Petoska deserves so much credit for that play. He bought so much time and just showing them set mechanics.
Chains of Corruption, they're coming through. The focus on it to the Jace flashes away, and now the Karma on the run. Ooh. Gandalf picks up the kill on Azita. The damage coming through, and now the focus resolve forces a flash away from Abagnale. But that layering of damage, oh boy, Azita blew up.
Oh boy, indeed. Jace said, I see you, Lethality. I raise you mine. And just shot blasted him to the Nexus and said, see you later, Chief.
And that is why Jace can be a little bit broken. But first off, this is how Zet managed his outplay on the tower, and it was beautiful.
As a top laner, this is beautiful to see. Like, perfectly played back into the tower. Sure, the tower's disabled, but then this face breaker, stunning them both together, flashing away from the Volibear damage, and even just buying time so Kayle has the ultimate to finish this. And then Volibear pretty much nearly dies to the tower, has to flash, but still dies anyway. And it just bought that much time that Wazen just had the time to roam down and say, hello, Chief, these are my kills.
And then meanwhile, in the mid lane, I just want to see if there was a Soul Flare at the same time as a Shock Blast.
Let's see. So they bunched together. It is the Soul Flare and the Shock Blast, but it looks like Leona took the Soul Flare, so it was just straight up the Shock Blast, which just annihilated Varus.
There you go, and Epic Avalanche are showing that they are still capable of fighting. Reptile being dropped in the mid lane, and this might give Nyyrikki some time to be able to secure their third Drake of the game. But Mirza, as we have seen, getting to a point where he can really start to one-shot some of the squishier members from Nyyrikki.
And that's what you want when you're picking this Jace. You want the aggression, you want the devastating poke, pretty much. And we've seen it. We need to see more of it. We need to see more from this Jace. This Jace is kind of the shining light right now. There's a lot of pressure on him, and Kale has Spike.
Okay, we talked about the backline access, and Wazen is going in, but he's not going to be able to find the damage. Jonas will fall. The 1-for-0 so far. Pedoska just trying to buy time. Facebreaker, Haymaker coming through. Now Set Eggs will trade, but we talked about the poke potential from the side of Epic Avalanche, and that's exactly what they're doing with the Mystic Shot. Where's, pardon me, so Mercer steps forward. Oh, Carwas picks up the kill, and this is the potency from the side of Epic Avalanche. They pick up one more. Wazen goes in, and now it's a 3v1. Turbo Gandalf will be able to find one before he falls, and never mind, Nyyrikki win the fight, and Nyyrikki find 5 for 3 and secure the Drake as well.
And this is how you just see fights at the highest level of play, because no one died off the first initial engage from the Akali. Yeah. And they all waited for the Akali to come out before they looked to re-engage. This is the pressure of the Akali in the set. They just buy time for you to just poke away, try chip away at whatever you want. They bought time, and they had to jump away. We're going to look into it a bit further. So we start off the fight. We catch out the Leona. We think they're dead to rights, but the Akali just buys attention of all 4 members have to turn for Akali because of the assassination potential, but she just jumps back to her team.
And when she jumps back to her team, she picks up the kill as well. Otherwise, that Leona was dead.
Indeed. Otherwise, Leona's dead. And then Set just did the exact same. He bought time for his team to fall back. And then here's just a poke game coming through. The poke game starting to whittle down people, whittling down the Leona, but then the bush trap. The Set gets the showstopper into 3 members, slowing all 3 of them. Sure, he goes down, but the slow is enough for Akali to clean up.
Yeah, and the KL Ultimate did not do much. And we kind of exactly saw there the 2 different compositions, the 2 different styles of play really meeting each other. This poke composition from Epic Avalanche versus the team fight, the CC of Nyyrikki. And Epic Avalanche, you know, when they're poking down before the start of the fight, they were doing so well. But as soon as Nyyrikki says, okay, let's go. As soon as they drop down the CC, it becomes so much more difficult. Soliflare is going to be coming down onto Mercer. It's a 3v2 situation, but the health bars are high for Nyyrikki. Never mind, the health bars are going to be getting chipped down. Set Eggs will fall, shut down, going the way of Mercer.
Yeah, I would have liked if Avalanche actually just gave that dragon in the first place. And just scale up towards more items. Sure, their poke game was strong and actually did pick off a couple members, but the trade was just not worth it in their favor. They lost more than they gained. I feel like if they waited a bit more for some items, it could have turned out a little bit better. The poke could have been a bit more devastating.
Currently 20 minutes into this game. Nyyrikki lead by pretty much 4,000 gold. Nyyrikki undefeated so far in 2021 in national competitions. In international competitions, they have suffered some losses. But when it comes to Finland, Nyyrikki do not get beaten. And Epic Avalanche, to be fair, they are putting up a damn good fight.
They are definitely putting up a good fight. And this is, like we said, the first game of the league. It's definitely a banger so far. I'm happy that we got this game as our first game.
Couldn't agree with that more. Nyyrikki, can they keep their undefeated ways? And right now, again, we're in that kind of period where both teams don't really have much to fight over. Yes, there is a Baron, but if you're Nyyrikki, surely you just want to be waiting for that Mountain Soul.
I might have to start learning Finnish at this rate because these teams are really exciting to watch. Their aggression is just... Their aggression just speaks out to how much I like this style of league being played. I love permanent aggression. I love people trying to push their limits as much as possible. And you see both teams trying to do that at every stage.
15 kills to 12, and they might be trying to push their limits onto Carwox now as they battle over the Gromp, and it will be secured by the side of Nyyrikki. Some pings coming through towards the mid lane from Nyyrikki as they look for the engage onto Jonas, and who is catching out who ends up becoming the question.
Look how fast that Udyr is. It's actually disgusting. He has more movement speed because he has another wing plate as well, so he is extremely fast. Jace is at a big power spike right now. Has his mana move fully completed with his Eclipse. He is in a scary position. So, like I said before, he is the main shining light for this team. Keep this Jace alive. let him get his burst damage down onto people and play through him.
And now we are into a pause, and I'm really glad you brought up this point because it gives us an opportunity during this pause as well to kind of talk about the items that have been picked up and really discuss as well where we currently see this situation. How do both sides want to be fighting? Because for Epic Avalanche, they are 4K down, so they need to be able to find some way of fighting that makes that 4K deficit irrelevant.
Yeah, for sure. They have both their poke champions completing their very important items. Inventory's practically very similar. CDR boots, Mana Moon on each one of them, just Eclipse and Divine Sunder a difference. Probably the biggest power spike they're gonna get for the moment until Kale hits her second item and level 16. There is that chance they can try stall out for the Kale level 16, but that is such a scary thing to bank on with Akali pressure in side lanes.
I do want to talk about this Mountain Soul a bit because if the Mountain Soul is secured by Nyyrikki, you're looking at a Set, an Udyr, a Leona with Mountain Soul. Sure, the Varus and the Akali don't really care too much about it, but for the other three champions, that's a pretty nice soul.
Oh, not even just that. Mountain Salt against a poke composition is pretty much
True.
ideal. Poke compositions get nullified by this dragon. If there's a dragon they didn't want to play against, this is the one. And obviously there is Ocean Salt as well. Them two souls are just kind of just nullify poke compositions. It's why you don't see them as much anymore. Because Dragon RNG can literally mess with your comp.
RNG can always throw a bone or throw a spanner in the works. I mean, Infernal Soul would be amazing, but then again, Epic Avalanche aren't exactly at a point where they would be securing the soul themselves. And now we're starting to see the split pushing coming through. We talked about how maybe Carvox would be split pushing, but he's not at that level 16 point yet. He's not really the split push monster at the present point in time.
Yeah, and Set and Wazen both recalled for this. Wazen waiting in a base to find a TP flank here, just for that extra movement speed. So is Patuska. They're both just waiting for that movement speed off the TP, off the home guards.
Look at that ward north of the Drake.
And that's where they're both going. Double TP coming through.
Carl Watts is not going to be able to spot them, but here we go. Here's the fight. Petoska and Wazen coming in from behind. The Drake has been stolen. Mountain Soul's going to be over onto the side of Nyyrikki, and Nyyrikki are going to win the fight. Carl Watts is into the death chamber. He's going to be able to find one, but will fall nonetheless. BL has been locked down. Arcane shifts over the wall. 3 members from the side of Avalanche are surviving. The piercing arrow finds so much damage, but not quite enough to find the kill onto a Turbo Gandalf, and it will be a 3-for-1 situation for Nyyrikki, and they get the Drake. And Petoska's not going to allow VL and Turbo Gandalf to back off so easily. Baron up on the cards as well, Ryle.
And massive, massive props to Abagnale for just them wards down around that dragon, enabling that TP play to happen. The perfect ward behind them. Just, if there's anyone you want to see TP in behind you, it's not a Set, it's not an Akali. You don't want to see these two backline threats already on your backline without having to use anything.
And now that Mountain Soul has been secured for Nyyrikki. And the other thing to bring up is we talked about how Epic Avalanche, they want to be waiting for this Kale level 16 to come back in. But now that Mountain Soul has been secured, not only is it more difficult for Epic Avalanche to win team fights, they also have to worry about securing or denying the Elder Drake in 4 minutes time.
Yeah, practically have 4 minutes to play with. Sure, you can lose Baron, and it won't cost you everything in the world. You might lose a tower or two. That's going to be okay. But the Elder Soul on someone like Varus and Akali. You've seen the damage Varus put out with that last arrow. Nearly one-shot 2 members from like 75% to like 5%.
Yes.
That was already disgusting as it is. You've got an Akali who's working towards her 3rd item. Probably has a lot of gold in the bank.
Oh, Carl, what's the damage? Picks up the kill in the 1v2 scenario. He's at level 15 now, but Nyyrikki, they know they need to try to deny this Kale from having any time.
Yeah, trying to deny the time. Jason's going to be able to walk away from this, but is he going to be alone? There's some spam pings coming out. Both teams are looking towards the top side.
Oh, Zenith Blade comes through, Chains of Corruption as well, but Yone's got to jump in onto Azata, but the Karma is already down. It's a 2v2 scenario. It's BL joining in. The Varus falls, shutdown going over onto Yones. Another one, it goes the way of Epic Avalanche, and BL just trying to kite back, but he gets taken down, and now Yones in the 1v2 situation. There's no one to help the bear man. He flashes over the wall, but do Nyyrikki want more? They think about it before backing out. Meanwhile, ZX just pushing in on the bottom side of the map.
And to be honest, that's actually disaster for Epic Avalanche. They want to delay the game, like we said. They don't want to be going crazy on fights like this. They take a fight which is just kind of out of their hands, and then they keep fighting it. This is like the main big error what Epic Avalanche have been doing. They've been taking fights what just not been favorable for them.
But one thing we can bring up in Epic Avalanche's favor is the fact that they did get shut down from Azita, which I think was 600 if I'm not mistaken. So a fair bit of gold going the way of Jonas, but not exactly the member Avalanche would have wanted that gold being funneled into.
They did pick up 2 shutdowns. Kale got one from the Akali, and obviously Azita dropping his shutdown as well. So getting a little bit of gold back in their pocket. Kale must be very close to level 16 at this point.
Something else I do want to bring up is the entire base of Epic Avalanche is still standing, and I don't think there's any damage that has been done to those inhibitor towers just yet. So Epic Avalanche, they've still got their entire base standing. They've still got, you know, let's say they've got a few goods that they can release to Nyyrikki before being forced to make a last-ditch attempt to save their game.
Yeah, they definitely have a few tools still to play with. And like you said, base untouched is definitely a big way. All eyes on Kale. As soon as that 16 props, it's gonna be... Can we keep Kale alive?
Is there a way that we can see how much... Oh, there we go! Carwox is level 16. Is she strong enough, though, or does she need to maybe wait to complete her 3rd item? Meanwhile, it doesn't matter because we're getting the Stormbringer coming in. Azita's focused down, and Azita is dead. Is that big enough? The Solar Flare comes through. Fiel's still alive. Wazen's going to be able to pick up the kill. Teleport now coming in from the side of Epic Avalanche, and that's going to be the level 16 Kale. Joining in the fight, it's a 3v4 situation. How big is this Kale? The ultimate comes through. Abinale will fall. Shut down. Shield not going to be enough. Mercer taken down low, flash away from Turbo Gandalf, 3v2 situation, but Epic Avalanche, they may have lost the fight, but they stall out their game. They prevent Nyyrikki from getting a big enough advantage that they could secure the Baron, that they could secure an inhibitor tower.
Yeah, taking down Azatol is very, very vital here to stop them even taking any more off this. But saying that, Flash Bear Slap is not over.
Flash Bear Slap comes in, the shield on Mercy is big. Are they going to be able to turn this around on ZX? No, they will not. ZX onto a killing spree, and the Jace will fall.
I have a pet peeve with what just happened out of this entire fight, though. Kale delayed her TP to get an extra needlessly large rod, and because of that, they TP'd into pretty much the danger zone. They TP'd right in front of Udyr's face, which just meant that whatever they did in that fight was kind of useless. They nearly took someone down, or they did take someone down, but I think if they TP'd straight away, they could have made way more impact here.
But I'm also seeing this as a positive in the sense that Epic Avalanche did not have a favorable fight. As you mentioned, it was a late TP. Epic Avalanche had to make a fight where they did not have their strongest member as a part of the fight, and yet it was still so close. So for Epic Avalanche fans, this must be huge, but Epic Avalanche, they have no vision around the Drake, and Nyyrikki, this is going to be a free Elder for them. They can't contest.
They can't contest, and that is going to be an Elder. So, on a disgustingly fed Varus, he has 4 items right now. We're going to jump into the replay of the scene of events. This is the ward what catches out Azatol, and he's completely alone. The Karma speed up just enables this even more, and they just go full aggression on the Varus. Just a very huge pickup on the Varus, for sure.
Yeah. And that Solar Flare didn't even land from Abagnale. Meanwhile, we've got a fight coming through, and the Elder buff is doing its work. Mercer and Turbo Gandalf fall, and the question that I was actually going to ask, Ryle, is can the side of Epic Avalanche just stall? Can they just relinquish Baron? Can they just stop any form of fighting until the Elder ends? Well, Epic Avalanche, they've lost 2 members of that and might now become a little bit harder to do.
Yeah, losing 2 members, going to be 3 members at this point. Volibear out of position.
Solar Flare comes through, but here comes the Kale, and it will be enough to dissuade the members of Nyyrikki for going for more. Either way, Baron has been secured. 5 members of Nyyrikki with Baron, 5 members of Nyyrikki with the Elder buff, but the entire base of Epic Avalanche still stand. Epic Avalanche fans, do you believe?
Well, the important thing is Elder Soul doesn't last too long. So by the time they start sieging, they just have to buy maybe like a minute, maybe 40 seconds, and then the Elder Soul will fall off. So they just have to buy time till that runs out, and then they can start looking for fights.
I think the Rabadons has been secured as well for Kale, but here is the replay of Jonas almost being caught out. Oh, pardon me, this is the fight on the top side, suplex into 2.
And pretty much who you want to pick off there. Jace is being taken down, the strongest member of the team. He's off the table. We have a stopwatch completed on Kale as well. They know this could be the last ditch effort. They know this could just be the last fight defending the base here.
Epic Avalanche are playing it sensibly. They're not forcing a fight. They're trying to defend. The suplex comes through and is onto the KL. Carworks has been locked down. Is he going to get taken down? No, he uses the stopwatch to keep himself alive longer, but he will fall nonetheless. The KL has fallen. Carworks is dead. It's the double kill for Azita, and Nyyrikki will shred through Epic Avalanche. There is now just the Volley Bear and 2 Nexus Towers between them, and the opening win of Telia Esports Series Finland Summer 2021. And Nyyrikki will remain undefeated in Finland as they take the win over Epic Avalanche.
They give them a glimpse of hope in the early game, and then they just turn it on. They just say there's no brakes on this train, and we're not letting you get off. Not getting off until you receive our punishment.
What a performance from the side of Nyyrikki, and Epic Avalanche, all credit to them, they made Nyyrikki work really hard for it.
Yeah, I think they did well considering how hard their comp was to pull off. And not only that, playing against a Soul, which practically negates their comp, they did really, really well regardless of that.
And it all came down to right at the end, Carwox being caught. You know, that suplex coming through, and you could tell how desperate Carwox was to try to get behind his team, but he just couldn't. He was forced to use the ultimate. Can't auto-attack in that period, if I recall correctly. Then he
Yep.
had to use a stopwatch on top. So it was a 4v5 fight for Epic Avalanche, with Carwox just unable to do anything.
Yeah, and he stepped too far forward. Didn't expect the set to full commit for that, but that's the beauty of set. If you're even close,
Yeah.
try to break a flash, he's behind you.
MVP?
Oh, that is a hard one because I feel like Abagnale deserves a lot of credit for both the vision control and warding this game. They
Yep.
had permanently wards in the enemy jungle, spotting out people wherever they were. But also, I think Patoska deserves so much credit this game too. The amount of
Yes.
times he would buy so much attention in the backline just for his team to just do whatever they want.
Yeah. I mean, Petoska played well. I think everyone from Nyyrikki played well. I think, to be honest, everyone this game played well from both sides. And what a way to really start the split. Fantastic game. Ryle, any final words before we do wrap up production? Is there anything that we do need to bring up as well before we can wrap up?
Well, all I need to say is just this is the team to beat. Everyone who's watching, this is the team to beat. This Nyyrikki team still undefeated, still disgustingly good, as you've
Yeah.
seen. You got to match their aggression if you want to beat them, and this was a good attempt.
It was a great attempt from Epic Avalanche. We'll see whether Nyyrikki can continue this form over the remainder of the summer split. Thank you to everyone who has been tuning in. Make sure to keep an eye out on the SQ1 Twitter at SQ1 League, just as a reminder for when all of the games will be broadcasted live here on SQ1 in English. I've been Milky Cereal. This has been Rael. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday with more Telia Esports Series Finland action. But until then, stay tilt proof on the Rift, and goodbye.